What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to Redbeard's Garage. A while back we found a 1932 Ford Shriners replica go-kart sitting in a barn, and we knew we had to have it. So we quickly brought it back, pulled off the Briggs & Stratton, and slapped on a 212 Tillotson from Go Power Sports. We also made the baddest custom exhaust you've ever seen in your entire life. Took it out for a ride and quickly learned that the brakes don't work good, it doesn't take off, and it's not that fast, so you know we had to change that. We got back to the shop, slapped on a set of custom wheels and tires from Go Power Sports. We also moved the axle hanger back to tuck the wheels up into the body to give it that hot rod look it should have had from the start. We also had to remake a whole new engine section, so let's continue on with this build and make this go-kart the sickest hot rod go-kart on YouTube. Right, so on the last episode you guys seen me make this engine plate setup. And the only problem is how I was talking about the thickness of this is interfering with the CVT, so we cut that side off of it. Well, this is how I think I'm going to have to run the CVT, is slanted down like this, and it may be clocked even more back, one more notch back, but you can run these CVTs in any way you want if you're running the sprocket outboard like this. If you run an inboard, you can see these grooves and stuff will catch it, so that's why we're doing the outboard thing. So necessarily I didn't have to cut this CVT plate. It's fine. We have a ton of these laying around from like old projects and stuff, so it's not a big deal that we cut it. But what we are going to have to cut is these 3 welds here, and this is the output side of the engine, and we're going to move this to the center inside here and weld it on the back side and let this just be overhang. If I feel like we need it, I don't think we do. This is 1/4 inch thick Go Power Sports plate. I can gusset it, you know, down from the edge, but that's what we're going to have to do to get that overhang right, because we're having to drop it down now, so it's another issue. So I'm going to get to cutting this, moving it inboard in between dead centered, and then like I said, we can gusset it off and make it strong. Like, it doesn't need to be overkill. This is only a 212 at the end of the day, so we got to get that done so we can get it mounted in the go-kart. Is close. It's gonna be like super tight fitment for sure. Normally you'd want your axle further away from your sprocket on your CVT or clutch, a little bit more than that. This is just so compact. The engine used to set down and hover over the axle, but that's about as low as I wanted to take it with the CVT. So I think that'll work. I'm not going to fully weld it yet though. I'm going to put a chain on it, get the engine bolted down, make sure we have enough, you know, movement in the engine for chain. Then we can put the body on and fit it. And if everything's good, then we weld it. We did have to remove the battery box. It sat right there. There was no way to fit it in there. So what I'm hoping to do is put a gas tank on the front like an old hot rod would have, and move the battery maybe in the glove box area, like right here, so you never see it unless you pull the body off to get access to it. Probably what we'll do. So with this engine plate being for a 420 or a 670, we need to extend the slots, because the furthest towards the back of the go-kart the engine's ever going to be is right here, and the furthest forward it can possibly go is right here. So I've measured from this side, since this is a square side to measure from, to the center of this and to the center of this, marked it and center punched it. Now I'm going to drill a 3/8 hole because that's what these slides are, and once I drill it I can take my square and I can line up a perfect line that goes with this and cut that out with the angle grinder, cut those 2 slots out, file it if I need to, and then we'll be ready to go ahead and test fit, throw a chain on. All right, so we got the chain all mocked up on there and everything looks really nice. Bad thing about this setup is if we ever mess up a belt, we have to take the chain off to get a belt on it. Luckily, with the 30 series and a Juggernaut, if you have the gearing correct, you usually won't go through belts that often. I mean, we ride mini bikes off-road, hammering on them, and I can get several rides out of one belt. And I'm a big daddy, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So we're not going to fully weld this yet because we do have to lift up this front corner of the engine plate just a hair, like a washer's thickness, to make it good and level. So our chain, so we can make sure we don't have any problems with our chain. You can get premature wear out of your sprockets if you're not like lined up side to side, and as well side to side this way and leaning. If you have an engine that's leaning, it can skip a tooth or wear your sprockets out. So we're going to pause on this. I'll weld that out later. The hangers also are just tacked axle hangers. I'm going to gusset those to make them strong, but we're going to address this front end. For one, it's super janky. They've used a lot of they've patched it up a few times. We have to mount a hydraulic brake master cylinder right there behind this dashboard setup, and then we're going to take off all this steering, flip the spindles so the steering's out front. It's the only way to give us more leg room on this setup. So I have to pull the tires off, then pull the spindles off, flip the spindles, and then put the tires back on, and we can start getting rid of this whole front end setup and redoing it with some nice sweet parts. Okay, with the steering wheel all cut off, I decided to go with a steering rack. You normally don't see steering racks on non-suspension go-karts, on yard carts, but I've always wanted to try one out and see how much better it is than that old push rod steering. So I've made a small, I think this is like a 7 or 8 inch tie rod. I measured from the rack to the spindle. Now this is a Go Power Sports, I think a Challenger 150 rack. This is my favorite rack to use on off-road buggies or anything. It's super small. It works really well. It's rebuildable. So I like these racks a lot. They do come with boots and stuff. They normally have a ball joint out here. Well, I have taken the ball joint off, and because it was a metric thread, then I made this little C right here, welded on a bolt or a nut on the back of it. Then I have a jam nut so I can adjust it to where I want it. So then I have dual heim joints, you know, just to be a standard tie rod to come out here. So what we can do is cut this extension stub they had off, and I've marked where I need to drill my hole. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Cut that little extension off, drill a hole, and I need to make one more tie rod and one more of these little C's, whatever you want to call these things. And then we'll have rack and pinion steering. Now I did a unboltable mount here, and the reason I did that was because the front of the rack has this lip on it, and I need to be able to remove this. So I'm going to make another mount that's welded onto the chassis for the back side, and then to remove the rack you would unbolt this, take off the U-joint, and then the rack could come out with that front mount. I just think it's going to be really clean and a lot better than factory. The one downside to a rack is that is 2 turns lock to lock. So I have ordered off of Amazon a steering quickener for like a dirt track car, and it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So that means we'll have really quick steering still, just like a pushrod steering would have, but we'll have the smoothness of a rack. So you'll be able to turn this thing setting still on asphalt, super smooth. I just think it's awesome to go over the top on little carts like this that are already rare. Why not do some pretty trick parts? So we're going to get that done. Then we also have this brake master cylinder that we're going to mount up. While we're using this one, this is a UTV master cylinder from Go Power Sports. So it has a rear output and 2 front outputs, and then we have a line lock. So we're going to put front brakes on this here in the next week or so, and we'll be able to do a line lock on the front brakes to do awesome burnout. So we need to get this steering done, get the brake mounted, then we can start mounting up our pedals. I do going to mount a pillow block up here for our steering wheel. So we got a lot of little things to do, so let's get to it. As you can see, our steering works really well. We don't get into the body because the steering, like the heim joints, actually run out of rotation, how they're mounted. So that's actually a good thing though, because we literally can't turn this much because of the fiberglass body. I need to remove these old pedal mounts, and I've went ahead and made some new ones. These are Go Power Sports heavy duty pedal kits. They come with the springs, the bolts, everything you need. And then you just weld these little C stops up on the chassis. So what we're doing is going to move them this much further forward, basically, and the pedal will be right here. I've already tested it, and we don't run into the body or anything. It's like a perfect amount right there, so we can have our feet as far forward as possible. The body kind of ends right in front of this, so we should be good to put our pedals here. So for people that have wondered what this purple pad is, these are from Benchmark Abrasives, and what they do is they eat paint, rust, and any kind of coating off of steel, but they do not eat your steel up. So if I was used a flap disc, I'm actually grinding metal material away, where this is like a sponge that's been coated in some type of stuff. Real healthy for you, I'm sure. But so it'll not take any of the diameter of your steel away. Super handy. And this Milwaukee, actually this thing kind of sucks. It's good, but it kind of sucks at the same time. If it worked, I wonder if I got a faulty one, but it is what it is. It bogs and pulls up. I got some air ones, but I would really be careful. So this says max. The holder, these just well, that's on there. So if you hold the backing, you can, gosh dang. That's on there. I've never had them on there that bad. But anyway, it says 20,000 RPM. So we're about to have our air online in the next couple of weeks, and we can start, like I'll still use this on something quick like that. It'd be crazy to pull out air, but I have a 90 degree and a straight die grinder that we can use. But that's what this is. This is a die grinder. Now we can get to welding our stuff together. We basically, Go Power Sports has a bunch of different pre-made kerning things. These are for your steering on a push rod go-kart. This is one of their 5/8 jack shafts. They sell these in 1/2 inch, 5/8 and 3/4. Then we got a sprocket this was a sprocket, and I turned it down on the lathe and got rid of the sprocket. But now we have a hub. So I'm not going to go in depth on explaining it. I'll just show you when I get it all welded. So I'm going to weld all this stuff together and show you what I'm making. It's going to be pretty cool. It's overkill everything on this go-kart because that's the way I like to do it. We already got our steering arm made as well. I made that yesterday. So now I can just clamp this down. I got to clean the correct side. TIG weld this all the way around, and I got to make sure where the key's at. I want the key dead up. And when I make this hub, I need it the opposite. I need this tab to be like that. This one welded like this. And then I'll show you what we're doing. It's gonna be pretty sick. As a kid say, it's gonna be pretty trick. No one says that. Are you an idiot? Yeah, probably a little bit. Well, I thought. Brakes are going to work. Way more gooder. Hold it there. So how does
that's wet.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it rained on the vacuum. So how does the brake feel so far? I mean, your knee's still. That's as far as that pedal can be pushed forward. Because the body is here.
Yeah. And yeah.
So
it
I
still feels more
be.
forward than before. Before you're like this.
Yeah, that's exactly what yeah. And of course the gas doesn't have the spring on it loaded up, so it'll be the same.
I reckon this thing, because your knees will get destroyed.
It would have been nice if I just didn't want to raise the body a lot, like everybody was saying. Do the axle hangers. I should have dropped them 1 inch. We didn't do that because I wanted to keep the tires tucked. If I wanted to do that, I would have raised the body 1 inch to give you more. Like if we would have raised this 1 inch out here, then it gave you yeah, front and back, it gave you more leeway. But it is what it is. Get surgery if you want to be comfortable.
Cut your foots off.
So I machined up this piece of tube, and I put bronze bushings that are oil impregnated. So as they wear, they lubricate. So this will work really nice, and you know, allow you to turn it. And like I said, as they wear, they'll lubricate. You can buy these at any parts store or hardware store. So now let me hook it up real quick.
Now you have to turn it like this because it's one full turn.
Two full
way.
turns right now.
Oh!
Okay, pull the steering wheel out some. A little bit more. You spin it, and it's because this tube was rusty. All right, go back in. Keep on going. Yep. Now, yeah, see how it is. Like we can put those.
No, it's one full turn each way. Yeah.
Well, we can cut that in half with the steering quickener though.
Yeah, and then you're steering like this instead of turning.
You want the wheel on it instead, like a mower? You know, that's cool.
No, I hate those. I don't know why.
Now, steering's done. We're waiting on the quickener to come in the mail. Everything's as packaged as we can get it. Yeah, let's see.
That's going to be nice.
And we need to move the key switch too. A lot better.
Oh yeah.
Waiting on Paul. Okay. Steering is done.
Looks sick.
I like it. Simple, but
so the brake will be on the outside of the body?
yeah, but the body only starts like right. Grab the body. Let's set it on there. The body barely. We got to raise the body a half an inch. As you can see, it's hitting the seat screw. Oh, not seat screw. Because we got to raise it a half an inch, which it's sitting at a half inch up here. We just got to raise this to make it level. And that's no big deal. We're just going to put rubber pucks under there to keep it from vibrating. If you feel under here, there's a big orifice.
Okay.
So the brake will be tucked in here. To get to the master cylinder, you got to pull the seat. You should never have to get to the master cylinder. But so the brake master cylinder is set right here. Yeah, we'll probably leave the body when we mount it just to make sure we're getting clearance, you know, on the seat and everything. Like tack it, hold it up in there without the seat in, because I know where the seat sets. So yeah.
Yeesh.
There she is. Real nice. So that'll be half that when we get the quickener. It's real nice. And it's so smooth.
Yeah, that's
like we're used to. I'm doing that to gravy bones for sure. 100. Yeah.
That ain't got power steering. No, you can do it to that too.
So I think this little hot rod's looking sick. Now I know people wanted us to lower the axle hanger in the rear 1 inch. I thought about that. We've built these things for 6 years. The only reason I didn't do that was the simple fact of I wanted it to set level, and the go-kart's setting completely level right now. I didn't want the rear end sticking way up. So another thing we're going to do is we're going to raise the body 1 inch. The front's already setting a half inch up right now because of the way the front end hits the rack. So once we raise it a half inch, raise this 1 inch, we'll have the clearance that we need, because right now the tires are touching. The body's not centered on there too, by the way. But right now it's touching, so 1 inch will give us all the clearance, because these tires will swell at about 40-50 mile an hour or higher RPM, so we don't want them to swell and hit the body, so we want to have a good amount of clearance. Then the brake stuff I was making on the lathe and the parts I was talking about earlier is right there. So we made that pivoting setup. It's all removable and you can disassemble it, replace the bearings, because I use Go Power Sports 5/8 bearings like a 40 series CVT would have. So the seat sets flush with that square tubing down there. So that means we have a pocket on each side to add things. So the master cylinder is going to set right in this area in between the seat and the body. And then on this side, we're going to put a battery over here. Because we had to remove the battery from back there, we'll tuck it in back there. So to access the battery and the master cylinder, you'll have to pull the seat, which isn't a big deal. So in the next video, we will be giving this thing a test ride before we build the engine. So what I'll do off camera is weld everything up. And then on the next video, we'll get the brake master cylinder hooked up. We're adding front disc brakes to it. So we'll get all the brakes installed. We wanted this to be a very, very short series, and it's extended a little bit because I keep going further with what I want to do to it. And the simple fact is I want front disc brakes. Rear brakes are okay, but having front disc brakes change everything, and we can have a hydro e-brake and yank it if we have room for it. I don't know. We got to see right now, but we got that super special part we're putting on it. It's $1,000 parts. A couple people has actually guessed it. It's a super rare part. I found it in Texas years ago, and I've been waiting to find something cool to put it on, and I think this is a perfect setup. So she's going to make a lot of power, let's say that. Let me know what you think of the steering. I think it is awesome having rack and pinion steering. It's going to work so smooth with that Quickener. It's going to be just like a push rod steering, like a race cart, so it's going to have super fast steering on it to, you know, hang on asphalt. So super pumped. Make sure to check out the links in the video description. Go Power Sports supported this whole build. It's awesome to be building. I love building simple go-karts. It really takes us back to where we started, and it's just so much more fun than having to figure out every little piece on a big buggy chassis. But let us know if you want to see anything special on this go-kart. We're super pumped. We got some big things in store for it. So and you guys, possibly one of you guys could own it. So we'll see what happens with that in the future. Thank you guys so much for your support and watching these videos. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this on all platforms. We love you guys, and God bless.